Is Nintendo really about to go after Valve? How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Deck Ready. I hope you're having a great week, and I'm excited to jump into this Steam Deck news. Before I do, I just wanted to ask you, maybe subscribe to the channel if you've been watching it, you enjoy these videos, or you're new here and you're enjoying this video. It would really help me out if you subscribed and set your notifications to all. All right, so the biggest news story this week is definitely this whole situation surrounding Dolphin, Nintendo, and I guess kind of Valve. So back on March 28th, which was actually a while ago at this point, holy crap, I feel like it was just my birthday and now we're about to hit June. Anyways, back on March 28th, it was announced that the Dolphin emulator is coming to Steam, which is pretty cool because it's a great place to just download the emulator, have it install, and then it's ready to go in your Steam library. Honestly, I don't really know what benefit it adds outside of downloading it from the website you can get it on now, but it's just cool having stuff on Steam. Like, I always get excited when things I already have on my computer eventually come to Steam. It was kind of a weird situation for sure because this emulator's been around for a really long time. So like announcing it without a release date and then like waiting a little while and throwing it up there, you'd think they could just like announce and release it all within the same day. But it's actually been quite a little while since we've heard any information on this until this weekend that Valve was served with the DMCA takedown notice from Nintendo. And that's why we haven't seen Dolphin show up on Steam to download at this point. But it's also why we're not going to see Dolphin show up on Steam in any time, really. It looks like the whole thing is dead in the water and it's not going to happen. The way it was explained by the makers of Dolphin is that this isn't like a normal DMCA takedown where you can appeal it and then hope that it gets appealed and then you can actually just put up Dolphin on Steam eventually. This is more like one company issuing it to another, and it's more of a cease and desist. So Nintendo is going, hey, Valve, you're really overstepping here by allowing Dolphin to be used on Steam. So we're going to say, don't do that. Don't allow it to be downloaded by anyone or added to their account. And Valve doesn't want to get sued by Nintendo, so they're saying, all right, look, we're just not going to allow Dolphin to be put on Steam. Nintendo, definitely the party pooper here and not us. And that explanation really cleared things up for me because when this was announced, I was like, why can Nintendo file a takedown notice on Steam for Dolphin, but not actually file one for Dolphin to be taken down? And I'm sure there's some like laws or lawsuits or precedent that was set before that allows Dolphin to exist alongside every other emulator that's out there on the World Wide Web. But then once you add it to a storefront like Steam, whether it's free or not, that obviously opens things up for Nintendo to say, hey, don't actually offer this up to download to anybody. People are also thinking that maybe one reason Nintendo is able to go after this on the Steam store versus out in the wild is because Dolphin includes a Wii encryption key. So by Valve hosting Dolphin on the Steam store, they are technically distributing this encryption key as well. So Nintendo's saying, hey, if you don't take this down, we could just sue you and say you're helping pirate Wii games, which obviously is not a legal battle that Valve wants to enter in. So I completely understand why Valve is kind of bending the knee here and saying, look, Nintendo filed this takedown, we're taking it off the store. It just really sucks in my opinion because having this stuff available on Steam makes it feel more official to people and it makes it easier to install, especially on the Steam Deck, right? Like you're able to just download it from Steam instead of with EmuDeck. I know EmuDeck is really easy to use. It's just like when you're someone who's maybe coming over to the Steam Deck from the Nintendo Switch and you're kind of turned off or a little bit nervous about doing anything on the Linux side of the Steam Deck and you just want to keep things in game mode, having Dolphin be able to be downloaded from the Steam store removes a huge barrier of entry for someone like that. And I personally don't think those people are out of line for being a little bit nervous about the Linux side. I mean, when the Steam Deck came out, I was by no means a Linux expert. I still am nowhere near a Linux expert, but I was even worse at it back then. And there were multiple things that I installed on my Steam Deck that made me have to download the recovery image from Valve and make a recovery key and just reset my Steam Deck from scratch because I screwed things up so much that my Steam Deck wasn't working right. So yeah, I was totally happy to mess around with it. I wanted to learn, but on the other side of the fence, I can see why someone buying a Steam Deck who has a lot of PC games but doesn't necessarily love their Nintendo Switch as much anymore wouldn't want to mess around with the Linux side of things. And look, I really want to sit here and say like, oh, maybe in the future they'll be able to figure out some workaround here, like they can put the Dolphin on the Steam store and you'll have to go get this encryption key yourself somewhere like you have to do with BIOS files and pretty much every other emulator out there. But I don't think this is really something that's going to pan out. It seems like something that the developers of Dolphin wanted to try and kind of like dip their toe in the water and see if maybe they could upload it to the store without getting in trouble. And it seems like they had a lot of hope that they were going to be able to do so. But just a couple months later, Nintendo turned around and kind of took notice of this and said, hey, this isn't going to work out. Valve, we're going to come after you if you host this. So Valve threw up their hands and said, look, we want to host it. Nintendo's coming after us. Don't be mad at us. Be mad at Nintendo. And Nintendo's sitting there like, we do not give a crap. Even though you can just go and emulate our games on your main Windows PC, or you can get EmuDeck and install the same emulator and also Prime hacks to play the 3 Metroid Prime games on your Steam Deck super easily. We're not going to give you one more super simple way to do it. And honestly, when this was announced, I wasn't really holding my breath for it to begin with. I kind of assumed Nintendo would come after them. So to see it actually finally happen, it's like, oh, that happened. All right, that sucks, but let's move on because we can just download this emulator with EmuDeck. So that's the whole situation with Dolphin on Steam. Next up, let's talk about what I'm playing this week on the Steam Deck. So right now, because I was disappointed with the Sony showcase and the lack of Silent Hill 2 remake news or even a trailer or anything related to this game, it got me wanting to play another round of Silent Hill 2. So I got the enhanced edition up and running on my Steam Deck. There are some great guides out there to make it work on your Steam Deck, and it actually looks and plays super well. I found a community controller profile just with Steam, because once you add it as a non-Steam game, you can still download community controller profiles, which is awesome. And while yes, the controls are a little bit clunky, I think that's more related to the game itself and less related to the Steam Deck. And man, this game is awesome. I'm capping the Steam Deck at 30 FPS. The animations are super smooth. Sometimes when you're loading between areas, there can be a few very minor frame drops, but overall, this game looks and runs super well on the Steam Deck. And I'd argue this is like the definitive way to play this game. I tried emulating the PS2 version. It didn't look really as good at all as this PC version. And this is one of the coolest survival horror games ever. So if you've never played it, I would definitely give it a shot before the full-on remake comes out from Bloober Team. The next Steam Deck news I have for you guys is that I wanted to show off this really cool mod I saw over on Reddit, because it's not really something you have to do much to add to your Steam Deck. So if you're someone who's scared to open up your device and upgrade the hard drive, or cost is a factor there, because while, as we'll talk about in a little bit, the prices on SSDs are definitely coming down for the Steam Deck, it's still a lot cheaper to go for a micro SD card. You will probably end up buying quite a few micro SD cards. And if you're like me, who has Windows on their SD card, you've probably realized that it's not easy to store these things. They're absolutely tiny. There's also nowhere to store these in your Steam Deck case that your Steam Deck comes with. So this Reddit user, PSGRRR, came up with a solution that I think is really cool. It's basically like a little plastic tray that you put on the back of your Steam Deck, and once you pop it on there, you can just slide in your micro SD card for easy access. And he's using the top half of the Steam Deck, so you're not going to miss out on those back buttons, and you honestly probably won't notice them unless you want to. This is a really cool mod because A, it doesn't look like you have to actually take apart your Steam Deck to install it, and B, it's a cool way around paying a ton of money for either a new SSD or a micro SD card that's like a terabyte. Because while yes, they are cheaper than a new SSD, overall they're still pretty dang expensive, and if you could just have a couple of 256 gigabyte SD cards or a 500 gigabyte one, you could fit quite a few games on there in addition to quite a few shader caches. And if you have these slots on the back of your Steam Deck, they provide easy storage. So overall, it's a great solution, and I'm sure these would be pretty easy to 3D print. I have a resin printer, so I don't think this is something I would want to use resin for, but if you've got the other kind of 3D printer, I think this would be a pretty simple fix. And if you're worried about having to use glue or anything like that, the user who actually made this mod used double-sided tape on the Steam Deck, and he said after some time it's still holding up very strong, so I don't think you'll have to worry about that. But if you are someone who's feeling brave and you want to upgrade the actual SSD inside your Steam Deck, you're gonna want to check out this new drive from Sabrent. So this drive is called the Rocket Q2230 SSD, and it's available in a 2 terabyte capacity. So right now what I've got in my Steam Deck is I bought a used Microsoft Surface 2230 drive on eBay. It's 1 terabyte, which is pretty good, but it was pretty expensive at around $280. And then in addition to that, I'm using a micro SD card, but I try to use that less and less as time goes on because games take so much longer to download and patch on the micro SD card for some reason. So yeah, that 1 terabyte internal SSD has been my go-to with the Steam Deck, but man, I'm already looking at upgrading to this one because having 2 terabytes built in seems absolutely awesome. As for speeds, you're going to get read speeds of 3,500 megabits per second and write speeds of over 3,200 megabits per second, which is pretty dang fast. And this of course is marketing speak, but Sabrent is saying they designed this with handheld PCs like the Steam Deck in mind. So hopefully if you use this drive, you'll get faster loading times and faster faster download speeds from Steam, which I will say, if you use faster drives, especially on the PC, you do get faster downloads through Steam. So I don't see why that would be any slower on the Steam Deck, which is awesome. And unfortunately, you knew this was coming. The price on these things is going to be pretty high. So if you want to pick up the 2 terabyte version of this drive, it's going to cost you $299. Now, if you buy them on Amazon though, you do get a 5-year warranty, which is cool because I've seen some people on the subreddit saying that the 1 terabyte Sabrent drives haven't been performing very well, but it looks like those issues have been fixed and you get the peace of mind of having a warranty with this 2 terabyte version. And while yes, $300 for a 2 terabyte drive is pretty expensive, relatively speaking, compared to something like a Samsung 980 Pro, which you can regularly get for half the price, you got to remember that these 2230 drives were not super common before we started getting the explosion of handheld gaming PCs that came out over the past year. And I will say that you're getting this 2 terabyte drive for the same price I paid for a used Microsoft Surface 1 terabyte 2230 drive over a year ago. So in that year, the price has essentially fallen to the point where you can get a 2 terabyte drive for the price of a 1 terabyte drive just a year ago. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today here on the channel is Sony's new handheld, the Project Q. Now this thing was announced at the very end of the Sony showcase last week, and I would definitely say the response to it hasn't been amazing. So what it is basically like if you literally cut a DualSense in half and then glued it to the sides of a little gaming tablet. Now the thing that's really the point of contention with this handheld is that it's not built to natively play games. What it's actually built for is to stream games not from the cloud but from your PlayStation 5. So even if you have PS Plus Premium, which comes along with PS3 game streaming and other PS system game streaming, this thing is not built for that. It's built to literally remote play games off of your PlayStation 5. So if you have a good Wi-Fi network and you're in your house, you should be able to get some pretty good streaming capabilities from your PS5 to this 1080p 60 Hz tablet. And it was confirmed that those DualSense halves have all the features of the regular old DualSense. So you're getting the adaptive triggers, you're getting the haptic feedback, and it's going to feel in your hand like you're holding a DualSense, which is admittedly pretty cool. Now, if you're a Steam Deck owner, this thing obviously doesn't have a whole lot of utility because while there isn't a truly official way to get PS5 remote play up and running on the Steam Deck, there are multiple ways you can do it, and honestly, they're not that complicated, and games look and play pretty dang good on the Steam Deck streaming directly from your PlayStation 5. I see posts on the subreddit all the time of people doing it. The one biggest factor of this thing's success, I think personally, is price. I think everyone honestly thinks that, because if you get this thing down to like $100 or $150, it immediately becomes a really cool supplementary piece of tech for your PlayStation 5. But if you're selling this for $250, $300, maybe even $350, there is literally no reason to buy this thing over a Steam Deck, even though it is technically an official Sony piece of hardware that has actual DualSense capabilities. I personally don't think those capabilities are worth it to pay like $50 less than the cheapest Steam Deck, especially when your Steam Deck can do exactly what this handheld is doing. And moving outside of the Steam Deck, you can also stream PS5 games to your phone using a backbone. You can stream them to your PC, you can stream them to your Mac. Like, there are so many other devices I would stream my PS5 games to before buying a dedicated handheld that, if the PS5 goes away tomorrow, is functionally useless. I just think this is a miscalculation from Sony, and honestly a little bit of a waste of time. I really would like them to maybe give up the PSVR 2 and this thing in favor of making an actual gaming handheld, and my only hope is that they are testing the waters with this thing to see if there is demand for a PlayStation handheld. But if they are doing that, I think they're poisoning the well a little bit from the start because of the what this thing inherently is. Just having it be a streaming device that streams games from your PlayStation 5 to a handheld and giving it no other capability, it's kind of like cutting this thing down at the knees from the start. But I have seen some other channels try to defend this thing. I just can't even muster up the contrarian point here. It's just something that I saw and immediately was like, nah, this isn't it, Sony. And I feel like a lot of other people are feeling the same way. But if you are going to pick up a Project Q, or you might ditch your Steam Deck for it, I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys on this week's Steam Deck news update. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.